the newly hostile domain of the highway during morning rush hour. With no shield against the traffic and rain, I feel as if I've entered a new kind of wilderness area. But this is no walk in the park. A steady stream of cars pummels past my shoulder on the long hill down to the ferry, drenching me with noise and fumes that linger like a sour, wet fog. Only my refusal to give up before I've even begun keeps me from turning back as I trudge on into the gray light of morning, a solitary salmon in the wrong river, bucking a steady current of cars, a current that seems to have no beginning and no end. A couple days into that walking trip, I've walked through the Tulalip Indian Reservation, I've walked through Everett, the Snohomish Delta, the Snohomish Delta, and I've gone through the Tulalip Indian Reservation for the first time. I've never been there. I live on Whidbey Island, and it's 4 miles across, and I look over on, but I've never been there. Spent a very cold, sub-freezing night in the forest somewhere in the Tulalip Indian Reservation. And this is from the next morning when I'm walking up toward Kayak Point. By the time I reach Kayak Point, the sun has exploded above the forest, turning Port Susan the same cobalt blue as the sky. And the long vista down Possession Sound, a tapestry of islands glinting in the sun. The Olympic Mountains swell in the distance behind Camano Island, displaying their heavy coating of fresh winter snow. I drop down a steep, winding road to the beach, still heavily frosted in the shade of the forest. A bustling campsite in summer, the park at Kayak Point belongs all to me on this January morning. A few western grebes and Barrow's goldeneyes are feeding in the shallows, diving into the mirrored reflection of mountains that travel with them down into the stillness of the water. The graceful arc of the grebe as it splits the water's surface is one of such effortless artistry that I never grow weary of watching it. I study the weariness in my own body with a similar fascination, almost like meeting an old friend again. The stiff muscles that are the cost of coming here on foot also make the day feel more vibrant and alive. I peel an orange and enjoy a breakfast of bread and cheese while the sun reels itself higher into the sky. A pilgrimage like this one does its job by leavening my abstract questions with the fierce beauty of the moment. It returns a measure of balance to the world by helping to pry the senses open. My wife, Sally, joined me for 2 of the days on that walk from Stanwood to LaConner, which really was actually one of the turning points in the year for me, because when I began the year, I really didn't know how this was going to land in the ecology of my relationship and my marriage. It was a pretty big shift, and it was asking a lot of Sally, and I honestly didn't know if this was going to draw us closer or not. And so when Sally asked me if she could join me for a couple of days on the walk from Stanwood to LaConner, which turned out to be just a memorable walk with, on foot with 10,000 snow geese flocks, many thousands along the way, and experiencing that on foot. It was really her way of affirming my commitment and we had some great adventures. And then right after she left, when we had spent the night with friends in LaConner, she took a bus back down to catch a ferry home, and I kept going in a chapter that I call An Island 4 Days Long. I used to think that Whidbey Island was 1 hour long until I walked it and discovered that it's actually 4 days long. And as well as walking Fidalgo Island. So when I crossed from LaConner into the Swinomish Indian Reservation, I have a good friend in the Swinomish Nation. A guy that in the book I called Marvin because he did not want his name to be used. And I had hoped that I would find Marvin at home, but I left some phone messages, email messages, which he hadn't responded to, so I had no idea if he'd be there or not. When I got to Marvin's house near the tribal village and knocked on the door, his wife answered, and it turned out that Marvin had been up all night in the longhouse, the ceremonial longhouse, which he's really involved in bringing young tribal members into the longhouse tradition, and had generously invited me at different times to be witness to such an amazing tradition that's coming up all over, reasserting itself all over the Salish Sea now. But Marvin wasn't home, or he was home, he was asleep, so I just asked his wife to give him my best and kept on my way. And about an hour later, a car pulled up alongside of me, and there was Marvin. It was Marvin, and with a beaming face, he invites me to drive back to his house for a visit. I refused the ride, telling him about my car-free vow and the purpose of my walk through the Skagit. He pulls over to talk on a rise above the Swinomish Channel that has a grand view of the Skagit Valley sprawling away to the east across the water. In spite of the cold, we talked for a long time, catching each other up on the news of our lives. As I tell him more about the purpose of my explorations, his eyes brighten, and he gives an enthusiastic nod. "This is a good thing I am doing," he says. "All of us were indigenous once. It's not just the tribes who have a stake in the land. The whole culture is out of balance. The ancestors can feel it when someone is taking steps to restore the balance. It brings them joy. They have been waiting a long time for us to wake up, and they are eager to come to our aid. It's not only for natives that this is true." Then Marvin offers some more specific advice. "What I'm doing this year will not be easy," he says, "and I will feel discouraged at times." He tells me to leave the road when I feel burdened and to walk through the underbrush of forest. Let the sticks and branches sweep against my body to pull off the heaviness. Cedar boughs are especially good for this, he says. And when I cross a stream, I should stop to wash my hands in the water and splash a little on my face to show the waters that I've remembered to be grateful. And there were many times over the course of the year when I took Marvin's advice, both wandering off the road into the forest and also stopping at streams, and found it really very grounding to do that. A wonderful ritual to include in my own pilgrimage of homecoming. And toward the end of that long walk, 6